Hello students. In the previous class we have discussed about the secondary sexual characteristics in boys and girls, and we have also seen what are the common changes which take place in both boys and girls. And then we have also studied that these changes does not takes place overnight. It requires lot of time. About it starts about at the age of 10 or 11 in the case of girls, or maybe 11 or 12 in the case of girls, and end up by the age of 18 or 19. And then in the boys it starts at the age of maybe 12 or 13, and then gets completed by the age of 18 or 19. So we see that in both boys and girls it takes about 6 or 7 years, and that time period during which sexual maturation is taking place in our body, during which these changes takes place in our body, that time period is called as the age of adolescence, or that is called as the adolescent period. And the children are called as adolescents. Okay, so we have seen that it takes place, it requires a time period, and it does not complete it very quickly. So now the question is, why does the body show sexual maturation at this age? This is a question given in your NCERT second last paragraph, which I have underlined. You can see it in your NCERT page number 136. So why does the body show sexual maturation at this age? Now if we talk about the plant, so what we do with the plant, we sow the seed and put it in the soil, and then the plant germinates, I mean the seed germinates and form the seedling, and then the seedling grows and grows and becomes big, and then when it attains a certain height, and when it becomes a certain height and certain growth has taken place, then only the flowering will start. So production of flowers is the next phase of the life, which shows the reproductive phase. So similarly in human beings also, when the child has attained a certain age and certain height and has grown up to a certain level, then the new features develop in the body, which show sexual maturation, which is clearly differentiating between the boys and girls. Okay, so now the question is, why does the body show maturation, sexual maturation at this age? Now, in the initial phase of the life, we have seen that after the birth, the body enters into a phase of life that is called as growth phase. So, body grows and grows and grows and becomes bigger in size. Now, when the body has attained up to a certain age, now the body is now preparing, will now prepare for another phase of the life, that is the reproductive phase. So, after attaining a certain age in the life of human beings, okay, so after the growth phase, now I have told you the growth phase is there in which the body becomes larger in size. So after the growth phase, the body enters another phase of the life that is called as reproductive phase. Why the body goes into reproductive phase? Every human being, the body of every human being undergoes this change. Why? So that the body or the organism should be capable of doing sexual reproduction, so that it can pass its characteristics into its own offsprings. Okay, so this is the uh, natural thing that is taking place in our body. So after the growth phase, the body enters into another phase of the life that is called as the reproductive phase, and because of these reproductive phase, uh, the body becomes capable of doing sexual reproduction. Okay, so that is why we have so many changes. All these changes are related to sexual reproduction. So we will study one changes at a time, and then we will see how they are related to the sexual reproduction. Okay, so let us see here what is given here. So we have talked about the need for specialized cell types in multicellular bodies to carry out specialized functions. I have already told you that those who are doing sexual reproduction, they have got specialized reproductive organs. Okay, and these reproductive organs produce specialized cells that we call as gametes. Okay, so if the body is not developed properly, then these reproductive organs are not developed. Now, during the initial phases of the life, the body organs keep on developing, and when they have developed fully, then what will happen? Then the body will enter into another phase of life so that they can produce the gametes. Okay, now let us see here. The creation of germ cells to participate in sexual reproduction is another specialized function. So creation of germ cells. What are germ cells? Germ cells are also called as gametes. And we have seen that plants develop special cell tissues types to create them. Okay, so we know that plant has got flower. Flower has got stamen and pistil, which produces anther, and inside the pistil we have the ovary. Ovary contain ovule. Ovule contain egg. So egg is a female gamete and anther contain the male gamete. So male and female gamete fertilize and they produce zygote. Then only the new generation will be produced. So like that in plants we also have specialized reproductive organs where the male and female gamete has to be produced. So in human beings also develop special tissues for this purpose. However, while the body of individual organism is growing to its adult size, the resources of the body are mainly directed at achieving this growth. Now the line meaning of this line is, in the initial phase of the life our body is simply growing. We are simply growing and becoming like an adult. But at a certain age, okay, so that is our main priority at that time. The main priority of the body is to grow. So while that is happening, the maturation of the reproductive tissue is not likely to be major priority. So when we are growing, we are simply growing. So nothing is happening related to the reproduction. Thus, at the rate of general body growth begins to slow down. So when we attain a certain age, like 11 or 13 or 12 years of age, then our normal growth becomes less, and the body now main target is to grow the reproductive organs so that reproductive cells can be formed there, so that our body will should become capable of doing sexual reproduction. Okay, so reproductive tissues begin to mature. This period of life during adolescence is called as puberty. Okay, so you can write the definition of puberty. Puberty is the time period. Puberty is the time period during which organism starts to produce gametes. So that is what is puberty. So I will write here, puberty is the age at which organism start to produce gametes. So puberty is the age at which the organism starts to produce gametes. So that is the age of puberty. So why the gametes are produced? So that the organism, the body of the organism should become capable of doing sexual reproduction. So if we look here, what are the changes we have seen that takes place during the time of sexual maturation? Okay, so if we talk about the boys and girls, why new features are developing, okay, and then what happens there in the male, what happens, the testis, and in the female ovaries are the primary reproductive organs. So testes and ovaries are the primary reproductive organs. So testes and ovaries develop. So development of testes and ovaries takes place just after the normal growth phase of the life, when the body is entered the puberty. So testis produces male gamete that we call as sperms, and ovaries produces female gamete that we call as egg, or it is also called as ovum. So the first is production of gametes. The first important function is production of gametes. So I am writing the secondary sexual characteristics and how are they related to reproduction. So why these secondary sexual characteristics are important for reproduction? Okay, the second is the gametes are produced, then the gamete has to be transferred. So gamete transfer is the second most important function. Okay, now we know that the in case of human beings, we know that the fertilization is internal. It means the male gametes has to be transferred in the body of female. So male gamete has to be transferred in the body of female. So the male gamete has to be transferred in the body of female. So for this, the penis has to become erect. So penis has to be erect for this function. So that is why the erection in penis starts at this stage. So that if the penis does not become erect, then the male gametes cannot be transferred into the body of female. So that is why the change is taking place in our body, and the penis started to become erect at this stage, that we have seen in the previous class, that it is written here also in your NCERT. If you look here, the the penis occasionally begins to become enlarged and erect. Why? This is the reason, so that it can transfer the gametes whenever is required. Okay, then let us talk about the next thing. The penis has to be erect for transferring of gametes. Now after the transfer of gametes, what is the next step? Fertilization. So where is fertilization takes place? Fertilization takes place in the body of female. So it is internal fertilization. So fertilization is internal in case of human beings. Okay, then next. So fertilization is internal. So now after the fertilization, the zygote is formed, and the zygote has to be developed into the embryo, and the embryo develops into a new individual organism, or we can say a intermediate stage is there also, that we call it as fetus. The embryo changes into fetus, and the fetus develops into a new individual organism. So for the development of the embryo into fetus and into the organism, the female reproductive part has to be developed. If the female reproductive part, like uterus, is not fully developed, then how the new individual will develop in that part? So for the development of the new generation, or the young one, for the development of the young one, or we can say for the development of the embryo or fetus, the uterus or the female reproductive part has to be developed. That is why secondary sexual characteristics takes place. So development of the uterus takes place at the time of adolescence period. Okay, so that the uterus, if the uterus is completely developed, then it will help in the development of the new organism, new individual organism. So after the fertilization, the zygote has to develop into an organism, and where it is development is taking place in the uterus. So uterus has to be completely developed. So uterus has to be completely developed. After that, after the development, what happens? The next step is birth. Okay, so for the birth, the organs should be developed so that the body can give birth. Okay, and after the birth, what happens? Nourishment of the young one. Nourishment of the young one is very important. Okay, now why the nourishment of the young one is there? How the young one is nourished? By the milk. Where is the milk produced? In the mammary glands. And this development of the mammary gland take place. That is why you have read in the NCERT, you can see here what is written here in the secondary sexual characteristics of girls. In the girls, breast size begins to increase. Why the breast size begins to increase? Because the mammary glands produce there. Okay, so why this mammary gland is important? For the nourishment of the young one. So mammary glands are present in breasts. So you see, all these secondary sexual characteristics are related to the sexual reproduction, so that the new individual or the young one can develop completely and properly inside the body of female, and the fertilization also can take place. Okay, now let us see what is given in your NCRT. Okay, so let us move to the last paragraph of page number 136. So, how all these changes that we have talked about link to reproductive process? So, how these changes? I have already shown you, and let us see what is given here. We must remember that sexual mode of reproduction means that germ cells from two individuals have to join together, means fertilization has to take place. This can happen by external release of germ cells, as we have seen in flowering plant that the anther is releasing, means anther is releasing pollen grains externally, or it can happen by individual joining their bodies together for internal transfer of gamete that is taking place in human beings also. So if animals are to participate in the process of mating, okay, what is mating? Mating means sexual intercourse. Okay, so their stage of sexual maturity must be identifiable by others. Okay, means the meaning of this line is that if the two people want to have sexual intercourse, or want to have mating, or want to have their own offsprings, their sexual maturity has to be known by the people, by the society. Okay, so how do we know that? How do we know that the boy and girl is mature for marriage, or the boy and girl is mature for having their own families? How do we know that? When the boys have a thick hair growth on the face, we know that the boys are now mature. When we see the females have a different body design, when their body is completely developed for sexual reproduction, when the boys, they have a complete body for sexual maturation, their body is completely developed for sexual maturation. So that is why we have a marriageable age in our country. So the marriageable age for girls is 18 years. So the government and the scientists think that by the age of 18, the girl is now completely or sexually mature for sexual reproduction. And in the boys, it is about 21 years. So scientifically, we say that by the age of 21 years, the boys are completely mature for doing sexual reproduction. Okay, so we are not physically ready, as well as we should be mentally also prepared for sexual reproduction. That is why we need to be mature. That is why many changes during puberty, such as hair growth patterns, are signals that sexual maturation is taking place. So hair growth, if you are having a long beard, okay, thick hair growth on your face, it means that you are becoming sexually mature. And when you attain that age, then your parent will think about your marriage. So on the other hand, the actual transfer of gamete between two people needs special organs for sexual act. That is why penis is there when it is capable of becoming erect. I have already told you, the when the penis will be erect, then only the gametes will be transferred. So in mammals such as human being, the baby is carried by in the mother's body. So the mother body has to be prepared so that the development of the baby can take place. I given the example of uterus, and for a long period, and will be breastfed, because the young one needs milk, and the milk will be produced inside the mammary gland, which is present inside the breast. So the female reproductive organs and breast will need to be mature to accommodate these possibilities. So that is how we have seen all the secondary sexual characteristics, how they are linked to the reproductive process, or how they are linked to sexual reproduction. So in the next class, we are going to study and start a male reproductive system. Complete your notes and study properly. Thank you, students.